Welcome back to PAX Unplugged. Jason Lean from the Dice Tower here with Demetri and Jeff from Experiment 7. Now, if you don't know who these guys are and you haven't heard of Experiment 7 before, it's because they're kind of, as we've been talking about, the pushing the edge between board games and video games and all of this, and they are doing the Catan VR. This is something new, and me and Eric got to experience this. So tell me about how this project came about.
Well, we've been using, we're big board game fans, right? And both of us have been in the video game industry for, 16 years, 22 years. And we wanted to kind of have a way to play some of our favorite board games with the people that we know that moved to Japan or moved to Texas or what have you, and we can't get our regular game night together anymore, right?
It's really hard to get all your friends back together. You'll never get all your old college buddies back together. It just won't happen. Or my wife's Japanese. I have a niece in Japan. I have a niece in San Diego. I want them to play games together. So this is our thing. We design really cool environments that you and your friends can come in together. We'll give you an avatar, positional voice, and we have a magic table in the middle of every room that spawns cool games on tables. This one's Catan.
Well, I mean, we got to play the demo, and I was just overwhelmed by this. And I know it's going to, once you have the final product, it's going to be incredible. But talk about Catan and why you chose Catan for this.
Well, Catan It kind of started the whole Euro gaming revolution, and it's this iconic thing. It works. It shows off what you can do in VR really well. And you might not think so, but when you have four players that have to interact with each other throughout the game, it's no one's ever doing nothing in a game of Catan, and to have the ability to actually feel like you're in the room with people and talk with them and talk about what's happening in the game, or just basically have a virtual beer next to you while you're playing the game. It's Catan is perfect for that. Plus, we just love the game too. So,
no, Catan's a great game for this. I mean, to pick a game like that, it's the right move because it's a legendary game that everyone knows.
Absolutely. Just from a game design perspective, it also lets us do some really interesting things. You get dice rolling, you get cards, you get playing cards, you get trading with other players, you get trading with the bank. I mean, there's a lot of different interactions. You get tile randomization, you have dice randomization. The AI layer that you hook up has to be able to recognize, we move the tiles around, okay, what are those other players doing? I mean, there's all sorts of juicy bits to work on that are really interesting gameplay problems to solve. And not that any of these have not, been solved for this game or different games before, but bringing them together in a fully realized 3D virtual reality environment.
The extra fun thing about this was, of course, you can't just say, I want to make Catan and then start making Catan. You have to convince the people that made it, right? You have to convince Klaus and his kids that this will be a good idea. So we went and
treat their property well.
Yeah, we went and we had already made a chess game, and so we kind of took that and had Guido and Benny Teuber, Klaus's children, play it, and they kind of were into that, and then we showed them some mock-up art of here's what we would do with Catan, and they were interested enough to get to the demo stage, and then they played the demo, and they were like, well, we actually videotaped that and made the teaser for the game with Klaus looking at it, and oh my God. Yeah.
If Klaus had the reaction, I had the exact same reaction when I was playing it. I mean, it feels like you're in Catan. I mean, you have the game and you're interacting with the game and you're moving your hands and picking up things, but they're all virtual. But then you look around the environment and there's a window with the box cover from Catan out there, and it's incredible.
You're on the island of Catan, playing Catan. It's very meta.
It is very meta. Let's talk a little bit about your design, your end of the design. I mean, this is clearly where the technology comes in. And how did you go about this process? And what made you say we want to do this virtual reality system?
Well, this guy's a creative director, so.
Yeah. So a lot of it was, VR is interesting because for even just something like the interface. Normally, you hang an interface on the edge of the window. There are no windows in VR. you're in a full 3D environment. So a lot of this is designing from first principle. How do we do it? How do we do it well? We've been through double-digit iterations on just like that card thing you were holding. How do we make it smooth? And part of the design, I had to go map out every single player interaction with the board, and then we'd figure out how do you do that in VR. Every single interface interaction you should have. How do we do it in VR? Okay, how can we minimize the UI to make it take the least amount possible so you can look around and see the really cool world around you? And so honestly, it's just a lot of iteration and a couple of decades of experience, and just having also a really...
That's all it takes, kids.
Well, and a really good team. I mean, the people working on this are all top-notch.
Yeah,
both art, engineering, design. It is a great team, and it's really a team effort.
Yeah, I mean, the animations in it and everything are really incredibly done.
Yeah, Kelly was, her last game before joining Experiment 7 was one of the Call of Duty games. Danny, the art director, was at Blizzard. There were, everyone has been in the games industry for a while. The Command and Conquer franchise, the Age of Empires franchise, like we got a lot of road under the wheels. So
you've all worked in the, I guess, gaming environment, and now you're trying to bring board games in, which is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is just because we're such hardcore fans. I mean, of board games, of tabletop games.
Role-playing games.
We've been playing, since we were kids, and part of the reason why now was a great time to do this is because with the increasing popularity of board gaming, people are interested in video game players. Aren't thinking like, oh, this is a board game, why would I bother? They're like, oh yeah, my friends are talking about that. Everyone has heard of Catan, and so one of the fun things about being at PAX Unplugged, and maybe less so for our colleague Corey, who's been standing on the floor for 3 days, but for him, people walk up to the booth and they say, Catan in VR, why would I want to do that? And then he's like, well, just take a look at it. Just put it on and tell us what you think. And, they have the same reaction Klaus did. They're like, whoa. And then by the end of it, they're like, well, yeah, I guess I could kind of see, I could play with Jerry again. And that's it. That's what we're trying to do. It's like, we are board game fans. So we're not trying to replace board games. We're trying to make it possible to have more board games and
more board game nights.
More
Lunches,
fun,
or coffee breaks, or all of that good stuff.
So the interesting thing is when I played it, I was obviously playing against 3 AI opponents, but you could obviously connect this to your friends in different parts of the world and do interactive.
The whole premise is gathering your friends back together from anywhere in the world to play again. And one of the things we wanted to do is make sure, therefore, the multiplayer design was good and the AI design, so we can mix them. If you only have one buddy online and you don't want to go do matchmaking, you and a buddy and 2 AIs. If you want to hey, let's go team up against some other people, or even you're by yourself, you're like, find me some people to play with. Click, off you go. Or
then, those guys will jump into the game. How long did it take to go through the interface to the point where we had 2 clicks to get into a multiplayer game?
I've gotten it down to where you can do 2 clicks and you'll be in a multiplayer game.
I mean, for us,
this is what I do.
One of the things that we want to do that's really important to us is make sure that board gamers feel like they're not being, they're not being like, we're not telling you, oh, you have to learn a brand new thing. Like we because we are board gamers and we play with a lot of people who have never played video games or never been in VR or both, who don't consider themselves video gamers. So we want to make it like really obvious. Like this is how you do this. This is how you do this. 5 seconds later, it pops up.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it felt very natural because the controllers and using your hands felt like you were actually moving cards and doing all of this, and you did a great job at putting this all together.
So thanks. I said we have a good team. We have a lot of good people working on it, and we iterate a lot.
So this product is not out yet. Obviously, the version that I looked at is an alpha version, and you said you have a beta version coming soon?
Yep. That's just a week or 2. Yeah, really, really soon.
And how long do you think you'll go through a beta version before you'll have a product on the market?
Just a few weeks, so we're going to invite some special folks in, some folks like yourselves, and some the first lucky however many people that come to our website and sign up for the beta, and they can play for free for a couple of weeks, and then once we're sure that everything is ready to rock, we'll just be putting it on sale after that.
So for those who haven't done a VR experience before, what kind of equipment would you need at your house in order to do this?
So there's a couple. If you have a good PC, go buy an Oculus Rift. That's what we're launching on, that and the Samsung Gear. So the Rift is basically high-def version of VR, and it's one you hook up to your computer. If you want something that's a little more mobile, the Samsung Gear goes into the Samsung phones go into a Gear, and a Gear is you slide your phone into a little VR helmet, so you don't need a computer, and you can play on that.
Well, those are really inexpensive. Like you can go onto Amazon and buy a Gear VR for $35.
Yeah, and if you have a Samsung Galaxy 6, 7, or 8, all of them work
there's a bunch of different Samsung phones that'll work in there. And then Oculus also has coming out in the first quarter of next year a standalone VR unit. It's just the headset and the controller, and I think they announced the pricing on that. Anyway, it's totally inexpensive. It's way cheaper than a phone. It's way cheaper than the $349 that you'll pay on Black Friday for the Rift. And then eventually we'll get to the PlayStation VR. We'll get to the Vive. We'll probably get to the Google Daydream. So, we're a small team, so we can't. We have to do them one after another instead of just sending them all out at once. But we want this to be available to as many people as possible.
I know. I'm going to ask the question that a lot of our viewers are asking, and iPhone, will you be able to get to that eventually? I know Apple's working on VR.
Question. That's an Apple. When Apple gets something we can put it on, we'll put it on Apple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for one thing, like a lot of the people we work with, and he carries an iPhone, and so obviously we want it to be there, but yeah, Apple has to be down with it, and so in the meantime, we'll point people at the standalone units or the PC-based units if they're iPhone folks.
It's whatever you got, but if you want to get it right as it launches, and you have I said the Rift and the Gear are the places to get it. Rift is the HD, Gear is the portable and significantly cheaper.
So obviously this is the first of the board gaming games, like true board gaming games. Are you going to do any expansions? I know there's Seafarers of Catan, there's Traders and Robbers, there's a whole bunch of Catans. Have you thought about expanding this out once you get it on the market?
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, we really want to do it. It's just a matter of let's see how people like it. We want to make sure that everybody is really satisfied with the base game, and once we know that, okay, yeah, we nailed it, then we'll start taking on the expansions as people demand them.
And it's one of those things. If you want to see the expansions, go buy the initial game, because that tells us, that shows interest. As long as we got interest, we are dead set on getting as much Catan as we can.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it is with the board game too. Like Catan was a hit, and then Seafarers, Cities and Knights, and hopefully we'll see all of this on the VR as well.
We
Absolutely.
Hope so as well.
Yeah, we'll be happy campers if we start getting customers that are like, yeah, I've been rocking on this for weeks, and I really want Seafarers.
No, that's great. Have you thought about any other games? Like Asmodee obviously has a big collection of games. Have you thought about any other games that you might start to work on?
We've now done games for both Wizards of the Coast and for Asmodee, and we have good relationships with both. And honestly, at this point, we're just kind of looking, because
we can't announce anything specific, but like Jeff said, we've been talking to these guys for a while. We get along really well with both Hasbro and Asmodee, and the Asmodee guys are excited, and we're excited. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's a long-term relationship, because I could just play. After seeing the one game, I could play tons of their games. I could play Pandemic. Wow. Pandemic, Captain Sonar. There's all these good games they have. What about you guys?
We would be giving things away. I was just curious, what are your top three? If you could pick any three to go in.
And of course we around the studio, we've done that same thing. Those games have come up in conversations around the studio. So, you keep your eyes peeled, world.
Yep.
Ticket to Ride, maybe? Did that come up in conversations?
Maybe. Be cool to see those trains moving around. Who knows?
I'll have to say, whether or not we do it, I would love to do that game because designing the maps for that would be friggin' amazing. Can you imagine that? Because you saw how it looked. Imagine doing them so up high they look cool, but as you lean down closer, you see more and more detail going in.
That U.S. map and having like Niagara Falls coming down, or actually being able to see when for example, if you like connect two cities, getting like a little view of the train actually rolling through the spots. I mean, one thing that we've never really seen in VR is kind of the coolness of model railroading, and so that's kind of a neat little thing to dip into.
This one. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of games we would love to make, and one of the hard parts, just as I said, we're a small studio, and VR is still new enough. There's a lot of publishers still. It's hard to get a good publishing deal right now, and the publishers are the ones who pay the money to develop the games. And just because it's a new market, yeah. So as more people buy games like this, it makes it easier to go make more games like this. So just throwing that out there.
So basically, for those of you watching this, if you want Ticket to Ride in VR, which I do, then the best thing would be get Catan in VR. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
It's been great. It's been great meeting you guys, and it's been a terrific show. We really love PAX Unplugged.
Yeah.
So
I've been a big fan. I think this is my 20th PAX between all of them. I'm a big fan of the shows. So have a great show too. So. Yeah, have a great rest of your convention.
Awesome. Have a terrific show, and thanks so much.
Yeah. So once again, Jeff and Demetri from Experiment 7. I almost said Entertainment 7, but Experiment 7, who are doing the development for Catan VR. And this has been Jason Levine for the Dice Tower with another interview from here at PAX Unplugged.